Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to lesson 65 of Chef's Apprentice, learning to cook like a pro, one small plate at a time. This lesson is sea scallop with cured ham and almond wine sauce. Making this Spanish-influenced creation, which combines scallops, wine, almonds, and ham, is a departure from the techniques used to cook scallops in the other dishes in this course. Here you will poach the scallops instead of searing them, then mix them with a toasted almond sauce and aromatics. You will then bake the scallop mixture in scallop shells. To finish the dish, you will brulee the scallops with a kitchen torch or a broiler. Techniques today are seasoning, chopping, skinning and seasoning tomatoes, toasting almonds, sauteing, sweating, adjusting seasoning, and keeping warm, bringing to a boil, blanching scallops, reducing, pureeing, garnishing, baking, bruleeing, and dusting. So let's start cooking. All right, let's talk about the mise en place for lesson 64, which is sea scallop with cured ham and almond wine sauce. Now, of course, we're going to need scallops, and we've done other scallop recipes in this course, but for most of them, I haven't had the jumbo scallops. These are U8 to 10. That's 8 to 10 per pound. These are jumbo. They're beautiful. So you want, if you're making the amount that's on the description, that would be 8 small plates. You'll need 8 jumbo scallops of the same size. I'm only doing 4 tonight, so I have 4 scallops here, but I have the right amount of the other ingredients that is in the description, okay? So use the amount in the description if you want to make for 8. And so we'll need about 1 cup of white wine. We need a couple tablespoons of olive oil. I'm just going to eyeball that when we get to it. We need a half a cup of finely chopped shallots. We need about about a quarter of a cup of cured ham that's been diced. We need about a quarter of a cup of chopped carrots, finely chopped. We need about 1 cup of Roma or plum tomatoes that have been peeled and seeded and diced. We've done that in other lessons also. It's how to do it is in the glossary on my website. We need to have about 1 cup of shrimp stock. Now remember, we make stock from scratch in this course, and to make shrimp stock you just use the same technique for making the duck stock or the chicken stock or the lobster stock that we have that I have bonus lessons for. And what do you use to make shrimp stock? The shrimp shells and tails that you peel off whenever you make shrimp. I just throw them in a bag in the freezer. When I have enough, I make stock with them. Now if you don't have any shrimp stock, you could use lobster stock. If you don't have either one of those, you could use chicken stock, you could use vegetable stock. We'll also need to have about 2 tablespoons of finely chopped garlic. We need to have about a quarter of a cup of almonds. Now these are slivered almonds. You could use whole almonds. If you're using whole almonds, it's about 24 almonds. It doesn't have to be exact. So about a quarter of a cup I have here of slivered almonds. You'll need a couple tablespoons of parsley. I have a lot of it here. And you also need to have about a quarter of a cup of panko breadcrumbs. Then you'll need to have some butter for a couple of different purposes. One is to butter the shells. Now I'm going to use a butter wrapper for that. This was around a stick of butter, and this is the perfect thing for buttering I'm going to use it for scallop shells, for buttering ramekins, gratin dishes, that kind of thing. We'll also need to have some small cubes of butter. I'm keeping it in the fridge so it stays cold. I want to have like 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch square cubes of cold butter. And you'll need to have 8 of those if you're making for 8. We need to have a peppermill and kosher salt for seasoning. We'll also need to have probably about 3 to 4 cups, maybe not that much, of kosher salt for plating. It's not going to go into the dish, it's going to be used for plating the dish. I'll show you that later on. Okay, that's all the ingredients we need. We'll break, come back, I'll show you the equipment for lesson 64. All right, let's talk about equipment. We'll need to have a cutting board and a chef's knife to chop the shallots and the carrots and the garlic. We'll need to have a paring knife to score the tomatoes so you can skin it. Peeler to peel the carrot. We'll need to have a blanching pot, that's there on the stove. You'll need that to blanch the tomatoes so you can peel the skin off. We need to have a bowl for an ice bath so you can plunge the tomatoes into the ice bath, get the skin off. You'll need to have a sheet pan or a sizzle plate to toast those almonds. Then we're going to need to have some scallop shells. Now, you might say, I don't have these scallop shells. Again, we're learning to cook like a pro. So this dish calls for a scallop shell. Now, if you don't have anything like this, you need something that's oven safe that you can put the scallop on, put it under the broiler, put it in the oven, then put it under the broiler. But these scallop shells, you can buy these on Amazon. They're really cheap. I think they're like $6 for 6 of them or something like that. And I'm making for 4 tonight, so I have 4 shells here, but you'll need 8 if you're going to do for what the description calls for. Then you'll need to butter those scallop shells. You'll need to have either a brush to brush the butter on there, or a butter wrapper. I'm going to use the wrapper tonight. That's the best way to butter something like that. We'll also need to have a saute pan, which is here on the stove. We need to have a You're going to be putting the scallop shells on there, putting them under the broiler, and in the oven actually. And if you don't have the silpat mat, they're going to slide around, be hard to manage. So sheet pan and silpat mat. And then finally, we're going to need to have an underplate. Okay, so the underplate is going to be, we're going to put the scallop shell that'll have the scallop on it on this plate on top of some salt. Salt will keep the scallop shell in place. Okay, that is all the equipment that we need. Oh, one more thing. You'll need to have either a broiler on your oven, and that's what we're going to use tonight, or a kitchen torch. And tonight we're going to use a broiler, not a kitchen torch, but you could use a kitchen torch instead. Okay, that's all the equipment. We'll break, come back, and start cooking. Okay, first thing on our prep list is to preheat the oven to 400 degrees so we can toast those almonds. Okay, next thing on our prep list is to toast these almonds for about, 3 to 5 minutes. We just want them to get a little golden, okay? So we're going to put them in for 3 minutes, check them after 3. All right, now we want to butter these scallop shells. Now, sometimes the amount of butter that's on the wrapper is enough. You just have to use your judgment. I've added a little bit of room temperature butter to the wrapper, so we are sure to have enough for these scallops. And we want to just butter the concave surface of each one of the shells. All right, here are our almonds. They're not really golden yet after 3 minutes, so I'm going to give them another 3 minutes, see how they do. Okay, it's time to sweat the shallots. Now, I've already gotten the oil hot. We've done that many lessons. I've showed you, get it so it's just starting to have whiffs of smoke. You can also look at it and see if it's shimmering. If it's shimmering, it's hot enough. Okay, so we want to put the shallots, the ham, and the carrots into the saute pan and give them a little bit of seasoning. And then we want to stir them up, get them well coated. Now we want to sweat them until they are translucent. Well, while just before I was about to turn off the camera, the timer went off for the almonds. So here they are. They've been toasted. They've got a little color to them, a little bit golden. Okay, so that's how we want to have them. Okay, so our mirepoix looks nicely sweated. The ham's in there too, and we're going to add the tomatoes now, and we're just going to saute them for probably about a minute. So our tomatoes have been sauteing for about a minute. We basically just want to warm them up. And now we're going to taste, okay? So we can adjust seasoning if we need to. I don't think they need any additional salt or pepper, but this would be the time to do it when you taste. If you think they need salt or pepper, do it. Now what we want to do is keep this warm, take this off the heat, and keep it warm. All right, now we want to add the shrimp stock and the white wine to the saucepan and bring that to a boil. Now remember, bring to a boil means just bring it to a boil, then we're going to reduce the heat. And now while the stock and the wine is coming to a boil, we're going to season these scallops, lightly season. And then, you know, I like to pat it in. Okay, so our stock has just come to boil. We're going to add the scallops. Now, if you were doing 8, you'd need a larger saucepan, obviously. Now we're going to return that to a boil. Okay, so it's just come back to a boil. We're going to take these scallops out and we're going to add them to the mixture of ham, shallots, and carrots. Okay, and we're going to keep those warm till we need them. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring this stock to a boil and we're going to let it reduce by about half. So we started with a cup of white wine and a cup of shrimp stock, so we're going to reduce it to be, so that was 2 cups, so we're going to reduce it to about 1 cup. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to add that reduced stock and wine to the food processor, and then we're going to add the almonds and the garlic. All right, then we're going to puree them together. Okay. We want to taste it, see if it needs any salt or pepper. No, it's good. All right, the next thing we want to do is mix that almond wine sauce with the scallops and the ham. And we want to do it carefully because we don't want to damage or break up the scallops. And I see that one of my scallops is already breaking up naturally. So we just want to be careful with that. And now we're not going to use all of this. We don't want it to be too soupy, okay? So we're going to add enough of it so that it still has a you know, a fairly thick consistency, not a soupy thin consistency. Just carefully mix those together. Keep the scallops intact. Okay. Okay, now is the time to divide these scallops and the sauce into the scallop shells. I'm going to spoon some of the sauce over each scallop, and remember, you know, if you're making for 8, you have to divide it among 8 scallops. If you have a little left over, that's fine, but you don't want to be in a situation where you don't have enough because you put too much on a couple of the shells. Now what I'm doing is I'm scooping out the goodies and leaving some of the liquid behind in the bowl. Because again, I don't want it to be too soupy. You can see that one, the sauce is running off the edge there. That'll be fine. It's going to go into the oven. I'm using up all the goodies here. Okay. All right, now we want to garnish each one of these with some breadcrumbs. How much? Well, enough to kind of give it a little bit of pile of breadcrumbs on the top of each one. Then, after we put the breadcrumbs on there, we're going to put one of those cubes of butter. This is called dotting with butter. Okay? Oops. Go off. You get these little cubes that are that have been cut about 3/8 of an inch square. Okay, we're going to put one on top of each one of those. Okay, now these are going to go into that 400-degree oven for 10 minutes. Okay, now this would also be a good time to turn, if you have a separate broiler, separate from your oven, this would be the time to turn your broiler on. If your broiler is the same, it's in your oven, then we'll turn it up to broil when we get to that point. But these are going into the oven, 400 degrees for 10 minutes. All right, so while the scallops are in the oven, we're going to put the salt on the underplates. Now this salt is here really for one main reason, and that is to keep the scallop shells from sliding around on the underplate. But also it has a secondary benefit, and that is that salt is a great, it absorbs heat and holds heat, okay? So once those hot scallop shells go down on there, this salt is going to help to keep them hot. But the main purpose is really just that they don't slide around. So how much do you need? Just enough so that when you put that scallop shell on there, it's gonna stay pretty much put. Okay, the scallops have been in the oven for 10 minutes. They're looking beautiful. Now they're going to go into the broiler. Now, if your broiler is in your oven, turn it up to broil, wait till it gets to broil, and then, which should only take a few seconds, and then we're gonna put these in, and we're gonna broil them until they are just golden on the top. Okay, here are the finished scallops. They are beautiful. It's got a nice brown on the top of them. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're going to transfer them from this silpat onto the plates with the salt. Just realized we didn't have a close shot of this. Okay, so transfer it to the plates with the salt, and then we want to dust them with just a little bit of parsley. Good, and then a twist of pepper. Just a little bit. Okay, beautiful. Okay, that is the end of lesson 64, sea scallop with cured ham and almond wine sauce. You can see photos of the finished dish at my Instagram, which is @ChefsApprentice, Cook Like a Pro. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.